our favorite team, the New York Giants, had a great season last year.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it after just a lot of years of kind of poor play.
Misery.
It's been a little rough. I know this is going to get some hate from Giants fans, and I get it. I was wrong about them last year, as you can tell by the projection. I had them at 5 wins. They get 9 wins, and listen, the reason for that, I would say, is just the game part of the schedule last year having, I think it was 6 of the first 10, the 6 of the first 9 were home games, which is very helpful.
Sure.
Brian Daboll is one of the best coaches in the league already.
Yep.
And I think that jumped the projection up. Also, like, I don't think Jones took a huge step or anything, but Kayvon Thibodeau looked pretty good. The defense definitely outperformed their roster, right? Because like that was a pretty rough defensive roster.
That was bad.
Year.
Like Jalen Smith, like
and like Wink Martindale did a great job at that defense. There were guys like when I saw they're playing Wink's defense, but some of those corners, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. And they still did it. Like they did a really good job.
Yeah.
So like then Dexter Lawrence coming out of his shell and Andrew Thomas playing, like both those guys are now top 5 in their position. Like it definitely helped. This year I do think it regresses a little bit. The roster isn't really that much different than last year's roster. It's just Joe Shane's done a really good job putting in some great foundational pieces, but they're still young, right? They're still young pieces.
Sure.
And I think to expect them to come out of the gate firing would be a little crazy, right? To think that, like, these guys are going to come out here and just kill it day one. Just think that Deontay Banks and Jalen Hyatt are going to be all pros year one. That John Michael Schmitz is going to be all pro year one. It's nuts. There were only like 3+ starters from the rookie class last year, right?
Yeah.
It takes time for guys to be more than just fringe level players or rotation level players in the middle class in the NFL. I do love Jalen Hyatt. I do love John Michael Schmitz. I like Deontay Banks. I think they got 3 first-round talents with the first 3 picks. I think they did a great job. But I think this team, I'm more excited for this team in 2024 than I am in 2023, if that makes sense.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think for the Giants, since they were projected 5 wins, got 9, now they're projected 7. Does that mean 11 wins? No, I'm just kidding.
12, 13, 14. 14 wins.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree with your weaknesses and your strengths that you have on there. Defensive line is good. One little worry I have, and I think not too many people think about this, but the edge depth that they have, right? Mm-hmm. So Thibodeau battled some early injuries in his career, but otherwise he was pretty healthy. Azeez Ojulari hasn't really proven that he could stay fully healthy. Yeah. And then after that, it's kind of, guys who, O'Shane Ximines, that's great. He's a decent role guy, right? But he's not going to go get you, 7-8 sacks a year. He'll get you maybe 3-4. Jihad Ward is good. He's more of a run stopper, right? Maybe at that point you're like banking on Leonard Williams to give you more of that interior pressure, and then Wink Martindale, of course, to scheme up the pressure,
right?
As well. And then again, Deontay Banks, you're going to ask a lot out of that young kid to perform. Aside from offensive tackle, cornerback is probably the second most, if they're not tied 1A, 1B. I think the most development needed coming into the league.
Yes.
Where you see guys struggle, right? We talked about Sauce Gardner, how he was kind of that outlier, right? He didn't really struggle, and he kind of he was different. Do I think Deontay Banks has that mentality? I think he does. Does he have that style of play? I think he does. And I think he is a carbon copy of what Wink Martindale would want in a corner if he made him in a lab. Right. So that's really important. When you look at the offensive line, you're going to look at Evan Neal, right? And you're going to say, hey, let's hope him working with Willie Anderson was what he needed. Again, and I'll say this as an offensive line guy, it's not easy to move from left tackle to right tackle. People think it's just like no big deal. It's like putting socks on a different foot or whatever, but it's not like that. It's genuinely really difficult. So he has all the tools. I think he showed some flashes last year. Fantastic in the run game. He really was. Andrew Thomas is top tier at his position.
Yeah.
I think John Michael Schmitz is going to be very good. I think they're going to utilize him a little differently than they did Feliciano, say. I don't
Mhm.
think you're going to see as much pin and pull with him pulling and getting out in space. But then I think, you look at those guard spots. I wasn't a huge fan of Glowinski. I think a lot of people liked him. He's okay. He's an average starter at best. And then for me, it's going to be Josh Azudu and Ben Bredesen. I think Bredesen may edge out Azudu just because of experience, but Azudu, has some good upside. So for the Giants, I think, the addition of Waller, if he stays healthy, is obviously tremendous. Having a guy like Hyatt and Paris Campbell who could stretch the field, I think you're going to start seeing the evolution of Mike Kafka's offense just get a little better, a little better.
No,
Um,
I agree. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, it's okay.
No, I agree. I think that what you're talking about here, I think you're saying a lot of things that can turn the Giants from a 7-win team into a 9-win team, right? Like Darren Waller. We've seen Darren Waller maybe not be like that top tier, like that Travis Kelce, George Kittle tier, but like right below it, right? Like he's a really good receiver when he's healthy. He just hasn't been healthy in a few seasons now, right? So if he can get back to that, then we're looking at a top tier tight end. You know, one of these receivers has to step up. There's like no choice at this point, right? It's
Well, and I think Hodgins. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think
okay.
Hodgins showed that, right.
But just to,
Last
like,
year.
but he stepped up from the thing about Hodgins, and like I do like Hodgins, is that the thing about him is that he stepped up from like an absolute nobody to a average starter, right? Like
Right. Yeah.
yeah, he did a good job. But I mean, like one of these average starters, Paris Campbell, Hodgins, Wanda Robinson, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, like these guys, someone needs to be a plus player, right? I'm not saying he needs to be all pro. I'm not saying he needs to be a Pro Bowl, like, but he has to be reliable. Like, no, think like Steve Smith back in the day, not Carolina Steve Smith, like, but New York Giants Steve Smith. He
Yeah.
was
Giants.
reliable all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and he was solid. Like, he was a solid player. Right now, the Giants do not have that on any of their receivers, and that's a problem.
I think that guy, when you look at the makeup of this wide receiver room, the guy that I think can do it, I think is Paris Campbell. I think Paris Campbell will be kind of what Sterling Shepard used to be with the Giants,
Hurt.
right? Well, aside from hurt, but I think he like Sterling Shepard is purely in that room for leadership, right?
Yeah.
And he's a rah-rah guy, and I love the guy, of course, but fan favorite. But Paris Campbell to me is the guy that I think takes that leap. He showed a lot of great flashes. Um, you know, they Brian Dable actually talked about when he was in Buffalo and Paris Campbell was at Ohio State. They had a pre-draft visit with him. They really liked him a bunch. So there's some history there. And I think with Kafka's offense, Paris Campbell, like he's not just a smaller guy. Like he's pretty thick. Could go over the middle, could stretch the field. I think you're going to see him in a tremendous role. I think the thing with the Giants that you have to be worried about is, and this is low hanging fruit here, but so many guys have a very similar body type.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and I'm not saying that you need a bunch of 6'5" guys either. I just wonder, where's the change up, if you will. You have a bunch of right-handed bats in your lineup. You need some lefties in there, right?
But I guess it'd be Darren Waller, right? Like that's how I see them using, right? Because
Yeah.
Daniel Bellinger was a decent tight end last
Yeah,
year.
I like Daniel
So
Bellinger.
I can see them using a lot of 12 personnel because these receivers really haven't separated themselves
Yeah,
that much. So I can absolutely see them going more 12 personnel and kind of using Waller as that guy, as
yeah,
that change up,
sure.
and throw and as Jalen Hyatt kind of matures and gets used to the NFL game. It's just I see what you're saying about the receiving core. I do think Paris Campbell has a chance to be good. Um, it's just like I just none of these receivers blow me away, right? Like you played Madden, right? You played Madden before?
Once or twice,
Yeah, you ever played Ultimate Team?
of course.
These guys would all be in the opening pack of
Yeah,
Ultimate Team. Like,
for
all
sure.
right, great.
Yeah, that's right.
These are all in the 70s. Great, this is awesome. Like, it's just that's what these guys remind me of. I do think there's some potential there, but I also don't. I'm not going to grade on potential.
They're
Like
also
I
on
have to see it.
these some of these guys are also on like 1 year deals, right? Paris
Yeah,
Campbell, like it's almost like a stopgap. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely think that again, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but it's for next year. It's the year after that. They're gonna have a lot more cap flexibility, a lot more room to maneuver around. And again, maybe they pull off a trade for somebody who a bigger name guy. You don't know, right? But um I think that that's possible, but yeah, I think Waller is going to be that guy, and I think he kind of has to be honest
he
with
has
you.
the other shot. Yeah, I think that like that he has to do it. Like there's like
Yeah,
it's either him or it's nobody. Like
yeah,
that's really
yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
listen, it can't get worse than Kenny Galladay. So like
Right. That's it.
he'll do it.
That's it.
It's just no can Waller stay on the field. And then going on your O line stuff real quick. Um, I think this line is not as good as fans think it is. But I think it's deeper than fans think it is. Like I
That's
think
right.
this line is like 9 guys deep at this point.
Yep.
Honestly, Andrew Thomas is the gold standard of
Yeah.
that line.
Right. Sure.
Um, and I think Lewinsky's. I think he's a little better than you make him out to believe. I think he's a plus starter. I don't think he's a Pro Bowl or anything, but I
Right.
think he's a plus starter guard. And then everybody else is like, you're looking at Bredesen and Evan Neal, Matt Pert, Lemieux, Hassinger, Azudu. Like those are all guys who are like
Yep.
fringe starters,
Yep.
rotational guys,
Yep.
average players. Like those are
Yep.
all solid. Like if
They're
you told me
Kevin
that Matt,
Buse type players.
yeah, if you told me Matt Pert was starting, I wouldn't hate it. Like, all right, yeah, cool, Matt Pert starting. As long as it's not over Andrew Thomas. It's just which of these guys again this is going to be the kind of the talk about the New York Giants all 2023 is who is going to step up, right? Which of these guys is going to step up because Andrew Thomas is solidified himself. Lewinsky's probably solidified himself the right guard. I don't see anyone taking his job unless
Sure.
he has an awful year. It's just we know Schmitz is going to get the first shot at center. Hopefully he is good. I'm not saying he's going to be Creed Humphrey year one, but can he be decent? We've seen centers actually be halfway decent
Yeah.
off the rip, so maybe he can do
Sure.
it. Evan Neal has to have a good second season, and it really comes to that left guard spot. Like who's taking the left guard spot and who's going to run with it. It's just going to be kind of interesting. I do agree in your edge spot. When I talk about defensive line as a strength, I cut you off there.
Interior D line.
I mean defensive line. Yeah, I mean like interior defensive line. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Robinson, Leonard Williams, Ashawn Robinson. Those are three phenomenal defensive tackles.
Nacho.
Nacho, yeah. Another great player. And I know this is not the same podcast, but we kind of briefly talked about Dalvin Cook, right? And how he's a luxury. Like Leonard Williams is a luxury, right? We probably won't have him again in 2024. He's costing $32 million right now. He's probably gone next year. But while we have him, this is great because we have two DT1s on the defensive line, and they're making up for kind of not a lackluster edge group, a unreliable edge group in terms of what you're saying with the injury. Right?
Well, that's what it is. Yeah.
And then for linebackers, and when I say weakness, I don't mean Bobby Okereke. I like Bobby Okereke. It's just who the fuck is playing after Bobby Okereke, man? Jarrah Davis, Cam Brown. Did you know Carter Coughlin's still playing? Because I did not know Carter Coughlin was still playing.
He's a special teams ace, I think is what they call him.
But that's a problem if he's starting linebacker.
Right.
Unless he's the second coming of Chase Blackburn. We're going to have some serious problems.
They also, the other option could be either Micah McFadden or Darian Beavers, who's coming back from an ACL. Right. And that's the other possibility. And Beavers flashed, he had a good career at Cincinnati. But again, you could kind of pair him into that rookie crop of draft picks, whatever, red shirt year, if you will. But it's a lot to ask of a guy coming back from an ACL. You know what I mean? That's another position that I think come next offseason, that's another area again of kind of bolstering, if you will.
It wouldn't surprise me if the second starting linebacker for the New York Giants wasn't on the roster right now. If they grab somebody in that late round of cuts, because it's a bad group. Honestly, it's just Carter Coughlin shouldn't make the 2 deep on linebacker, right? He shouldn't. Nothing against. I guess a lot against Carter Coughlin. I'm sure he's a great person, but he's not a good linebacker, and there's a reason why he hasn't got a whole lot of snaps there. They need to add someone at linebacker, and then the last thing I want to put the Giants with is really Xavier McKinney. McKinney had a really good start to the season last year. Had that freak accident. we don't know what he's going to be. And like whenever I see a player get a freak accident, man, it always scares the crap out of me because I always think, all right, well, that's it.
Yeah.
Like what he is now is whatever he's going to be, and like I don't know if he'll ever catch that wave of momentum again and ride that wave. He might just be an average player now,
Yeah.
which sucks because we drafted him to be an impact level player. I don't know if he's going to be. I hope he could be that, but I would say my expectation on him definitely fell after the injury.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the injury was definitely, obviously a fluke accident. But something that, again, I think also with more healing time, more processing, I think not that he rushed coming back, but I think because it was such a traumatic type of injury to his physical body, and I'm sure mentally as well, I think that it definitely, that's an injury that probably needed a little bit more time. I'm not
Yeah, I
saying, again,
agree with
not
you.
saying that they rushed it back or anything like that, but I think that he definitely needed a little bit more time to, again, even DBs, they strip the ball, they go punch the ball. Like, it's pretty hard to do, right? So,
Yeah.
he has stitches out in his hand and whatever, and he's going through manual therapy and all that. So, but I think Xavier McKinney is, again, a really good leader. I think he's proven that he can have the ability to be a really good elite safety in the league. I don't see that leaving him. I still think he's going to be an impact player for the Giants. And again, another guy that they need him to be, in a sense. I think, Adoree Jackson's really solid. Again, Deonte Banks, you got to give him some time. The slot cornerback room, you're looking at Darnay Holmes and Cordell Flott, who flashed as a rookie last year. But in that back end with Julian Love leaving, you have to lean on him, especially to help develop a guy like a Dane Belton and stuff like that in the back end. So he's going to have a crucial role in this defense, and they're going to need him to go back to where he was.
No, I agree. All right, we'll wrap this up here. What the 7 wins that the model projects? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's a good number. I always say, up or down a little bit. I would be surprised if they were lower than 7.
Oh, me
Um,
too. Again, for new listeners, 7 to 9 is middle class NFL.
yeah,
You know,
I think that's where they are.
7, 8, 9. That there's a 2-win wiggle room there.
Yeah, I think,
I'm totally fine with that. So if it ended up with 8 wins or 9 wins, it wouldn't surprise me. So
yeah, I
5 to
think
9
that,
is a hell of a jump, but 7 to 9 wouldn't be a massive jump.
yeah, I think that that's where they're at. Again, Giants annually have a real hard time staying healthy. So that's the other factor with all teams, but especially with the Giants, who have a history of not staying healthy. So if this team can stay somewhat healthy, maybe add a piece here and there, like you had said, in the cuts and all that. Again, but I agree. I think it's an 8-win team, maybe 9 wins at best.
Yeah, and I do think it's rare that a guy that you pick up in the late stages of cuts could help you, but the Giants have a lot of guys on there that like should not be in the rotation
Sure.
because they have a lot of young guys, but like linebacker especially. I think adding a linebacker, I don't know if it brings to 8 wins, but like it's close. Like that is the kind of depth we're talking about. There's just no depth there, so we'll see what the New York Giants do come August.